welcome to Fiber Trek. My name is Sarah. Welcome, you are most welcome here. I am so grateful for the patrons who invest financially in this project and for all of you who spend some time sharing with me what's happening in the Maine North Woods with my family and my making. We are back out on the trails now that it's cooled off and there is minimal insects. As you can see, there has been an explosion of mushrooms on our kind of back trails up against the lake. And we've been enjoying getting out into this kind of Lord of the Rings kind of feeling, enjoying the chilly weather and overall just getting ready to hibernate and feel cozy. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about my process for using the oracle cards and my reflective journal. So I'll be taking you through how I set it up and use the cards and how I use the cards in response to my questions. This particular season is a deep reflective time for me. It's that kind of coming in, and it seemed like a natural fit to talk about that. I have been busy working on quilts for my nephew, which we'll talk about, and I've done some bracelet making and jewelry making, mostly to try to get ahead of the holiday season for us here, as well as I cleaned up my stash and inventoried it, and I also did some knitting, of course. So I am still knitting on the Bresse by Marie Wallin. I re-engineered this top and I'm knitting it top down versus bottom up. I used all her original colors and I have picked up the sleeve and I'm working on the decreases. So I have high hopes for this as a 2021 knit. I have finished a project which I was inspired to knit because my Icelandic yarn came back from the mill and it was not quite what I had expected. It came back as a singles Lopi, but it was very dense and I was struggling with an application for it. I'm a garment knitter. That's what I tend to lean into when I want to knit something. And this just was very dense and wasn't knitting up at a gauge that I thought would work. So my friend Nicole suggested that I visit the idea of house accessories, which I've never done. And I designed this pillow in 2 pieces. So I knit the gray back in a seed stitch and I knit it a little bit longer than the original square. And so I could create a pocket insert for the pillow. And I did this on a US 10.5 and then I crocheted the seam together. So I'm really quite happy with the finished result and the yarn is perfectly suited and I'm thinking about a blanket next. Now, it has made this dog very happy. I didn't realize she was a pillow gal, but having put this on the couch, I am now under the impression that we need more pillows. So having ventured into that, I decided to knit a vest and see if I could work that into my style. I'm knitting the Whistlewood vest out of the same yarn. This is knit in 1 piece. It has 2 shawl collared seed stitch lapels and a seed stitch center panel. And it's a little rough on my hands, but I am slowly making my way up, and so far I like the result. I like the fabric. It is very structured and I think it will hold up well for an outerwear garment. Having spent a lot of time with the Bresse and the pillow and that Icelandic yarn, I was inspired to kind of go through the stash and repurpose existing projects as well as kind of inventory what I have and where I want to go next. And I have a beautiful, healthy, gorgeous stash, and it was a joy to go through it all and touch everything and redesign how everything was going to go on the shelf. In doing so, I pulled out some yarns that I had been holding on to that I had originally had one plan, but had found a new pattern that I wanted to try. And this was the Kashgora yarns by Kashmir People Yarns. This is spun in Tajikistan. I got it from Port Fiber. Each label highlights the hand spinner and her biography. And I decided to knit the Rain Shawl by Sylvia McFadden. This has a series of short rows with lace inserts, and I'm going to do the majority of the shawl in the dark blue and then the lace inserts in the lighter blue. I ripped out a project I had started with this Orkney yarn that I had produced a couple years ago, and I knit this hat, the Deep Woods Toque. And I made a few modifications. I made the brim shorter. It's supposed to be 6 inches, so 12 inches total for a fold. And I had thought I would do a pink pom-pom to match, but I found this faux fur pom-pom at the local yarn store and I was overcome, and I'm trying it out. So we'll see if I keep it or not. With fall approaching, I knew I needed to get my nephew's quilt finished. I had purchased this material probably a year ago, and it's the Smokey the Bear line by Riley Blake Designs. It had a variety of motifs. Some were small and would have worked for a quilt in a traditional sense, and the one I had planned to do, the squares were much smaller, and as I cut it, I realized that the other designs were not going to work. And so I kind of went rogue and just created these 4 square blocks and then started pulling in other fabrics to fill in. So I did all of the calculations for the design. I had to figure out not only the aesthetic, but also the technique, like which way should I press the seams, and the assembly piece, and then calculating out what I needed for the border. So this was a grassroots experience for me, and I learned a lot. And I was also challenged by how I wanted it to look. And in the end, I was quite happy with how it went out. I admit I got stalled and was very concerned about finishing it, but I was able to persevere and come up with a design I liked. I sent this to a long armor to be done, and he had it in time for his birthday, although it wasn't bound, and I was able to bind it and bring it back within a couple days. So he is content sleeping under his quilt. This is the finished product prior to the long arm quilting. With this quilt done, I have one that still needs to be finished, but I picked up this sweet panel and complementary pieces to make a lap quilt for the living room. And I was just so enchanted by these illustrations. I thought it would be really fun to incorporate this into the design space with my new pillow. And again, I just wanted an opportunity to work with the really beautiful pieces. I also was intrigued by this particular design, and I matched it with this particular fabric line, and looking forward to putting that together very soon. I sourced both of these fabrics from Hawthorne Supply Company, and they have some of their own designs, which you can see here in that beautiful kind of block print folk woodsy piece there in the back, but they also have other designers as well. So looking forward to getting these on the go and finishing up the Orkney quilt, which I featured in my last blog. Stay tuned for that. For the last part of the podcast, I thought I would highlight for you the process that I use for my Oracle journal and using my Oracle decks. This is a practice that I typically engage in every 2 weeks. And in between, I use the surface design elements of the journal to do more reflection and to continue working with the outcomes, wisdom, or thoughts that I had on the initial experience with the cards. Typically, I like to get my journal set up prior to pulling any of the decks or pulling together the framework of my questions or thoughts. So I use a 2-page spread, and I use 4 different decks, and so I create 4 different spaces to pull out important messages or things that resonate with me, so that I can continue to work with it for the following 2 weeks. A lot of the ways that I use this experience is to pull myself out of my own logic and rational thinking, create perspective, and just try to see a problem from a different angle. It doesn't always have to be a problem. A lot of times I'll start by writing a letter to myself. This is typically a stream of consciousness. I'll see what kind of comes out of that, and then I can frame questions around it. Again, sometimes this has to do with a problem I might be having, or a fear, or an anxiety, but I've also used it to kind of deepen an experience or follow a sense of joy or fun or whimsy. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this particular practice to deepen, affirm, engage in more wisdom. Sometimes when I get stuck, I will pull a favorite poem or reading, and I can use this to kind of jump on to a theme or a thought if I'm feeling scattered, or I can't really kind of identify what is at the root of what might be bothering me. Or so I use a lot of different tools to kind of elicit that response, that initial response. Now, I typically start with the Archetypes deck by Kim Krans. I see this deck and this space in the reading as the overall message, the overall vision. This is kind of the global thought that's speaking to whatever problem, etc., that I'm having. So this is more of kind of a framework that I'll lean into as I look at the other elements. And what I typically do is I will go to the marker for that particular card, and I will read it and write down items that resonate with me. This particular deck has a lot of jumping boards for other work, so she will recommend a poem or a song, and sometimes I'll pull that in. So the space that I'm using on the left side of the journal is really, again, like I said, an opportunity to keep those thoughts that surfaced available. The second draw that I do is the Weaver's Oracle, and I draw my guide in this particular instance. So this is wisdom, advice, tools, that type of thing that might be helpful in moving through whatever I'm feeling at the moment, or, again, problem, perspective, taking task that I need to do. So I kind of see the Weaver's Oracle as a group of guides, and again, taking the opportunity to write down those things that surface or jump out at me, or little stories or tidbits that I like. The third draw that I do is my guardian. So this is the concept of something standing next to you, watching your back, that there is support and you are supported on this particular endeavor. I use the Animal Spirit deck by Kim Krans for this, and again, this is an opportunity to kind of take in whatever her components of the writing are, but also to, again, think about that particular animal and its attributes, and what you could, what would be helpful So I don't always stick to what's written. I will kind of just use my own understanding of the natural world, or skills or tools, or again, attributes, like I said, that I see in the picture or immediately surface for me. The last pull is kind of if we were looking at mythological archetypes, which is what I kind of like to lean into the psychology of this as, a way to support myself. And so this last piece I would kind of see as the amulet. That's protection and magic, if you are into that ilk of archetypal nerdity. So I used the Hedge Witch deck for this, which is a plant-based deck. It's both the Oracle as well as a plant ID book, which is what I really love about it. So so that last piece is I kind of look at what is healing, protection, amulet component of the journey. The next thing I do is I put a pocket into the journal and I put my reflection in it. I don't want to stick my reflection down. I want to be able to access it. And so this is the method that I've devised. I also photocopy the images from the drawing and I collage them into the book. I really see this practice, it is very personal, and I'm not laying a foundation for anyone else. It's just how I choose to use different decks and how I choose to move through problems and complementing other personal development in my life. I like the idea of problem solving and using flexible thinking and perspective taking skills, and I kind of see this as a tool to do that. And so the more I can work with particular images or ideas, I feel like the easier it is to get unstuck. In the surface design portion of this, again, as I said, it's a way for me to continue to kind of sit with what's come up. And I have kind of dived into the world of bullet journaling and scrapbooking to complement my slightly mediocre artist skills. So these are rub-on stickers, and the adhesive is on the front of the sticker. You turn it over and you rub the image onto the surface. And they come in a variety of different themes and images. I purchased these from Wiwa Crafts. I think she's out of Singapore, and these are a Japanese company, MU Style, I believe it is. They also make stamps and a variety of other stationery, but I found these stickers to be easy to use, and what I like is that they don't leave a residue, so you don't necessarily see the outline of the sticker image. I use lots of different materials, but these were a new discovery to me, and I like throwing a few here or there just to kind of complement my, like I said, all of the branches that I make. I tend to do a lot of botanicals, branches, feathers, that type of thing, things that involve slightly just lines. The MU Style also makes a variety of stamps, and I've pulled this into my repertoire. So stamps, and I think I highlighted some I got from Newly Stamps on Etsy. I'll list those resources below. The bear is I cut on my Cricut out of cardstock. So I use a variety of different kind of tools, whether it's stamping or collaging in paper, collaged in fabric, favorite fabrics from clothing that's important. I've used gold leaf. I use stickers. I make my own stickers. So it's really whatever you can use whatever's hanging around the house, or you can, as I've done, purchase some items to kind of make things pop. Thank you for allowing me to share this process with you. As always, this podcast is about invitation and moving forward in creativity together. Here is the evolving spread from the draw that we did together. I have incorporated some fabric and layered paper cuts, as well as pulled in some quotes. This is from John O'Donohue and his book Anam Cara. I continue to add more branches, of course, bits and pieces as I sit down in the evenings with it to think about where I'm going. I hope this episode has found you in positive spirits and finding time for your own creative endeavors. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Again, thank you for all of the support, both in thoughts and finances. Be well. I'll see you next time.